Pyow. Right, okay. We've managed to get everything working. Thanks, technology. And welcome to the next of our MPG masterclasses. This one's on pop music, and we have special guests Aubrie Mitchell, Joseph Farris, and Pacific Heights, aka Devin Abrams. So, kia ora, everyone. I suppose the people who already watch these things know how it goes. We'll just do a little introduction for everyone so you can know what they're about, and then we'll start diving into the topics. If you've got any questions at any time, just drop them in the live feed and we'll do our best to answer them. We've also got some giveaways if you throw in questions, and if you entertain us, we've got a United Plugins Fire Spacer plugin, which especially for pop, for creating space, is definitely a useful thing to have. Or is it? We'll see from all our guests. And we're going to give that away at the end, so you have to wait around. And yeah, generally the people that ask the best questions or get the most engaged win it, so the onus is on you. So as I said, this one's about pop music production. It's a big topic and covers a lot of things, but it's also an important one, being that pop music is popular. So let's do some introductions. I'm going to go in reverse order. We'll start with Devin. Kia ora, Devin. Hi, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your journey, anything entertaining, thoughts on pop music or production, and projects you've been on, stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm originally from Otatahi, Christchurch. Studied jazz down there at the jazz school. Officially a high school dropout. Started a band called Shapeshifter at jazz school. Did that for about 15 years. So kind of got my chops as a musician doing that. And then decided that production and songwriting was where I wanted to be rather than on stage. So I kind of departed the band and got lucky with a few acts and artists and songs, and have been doing it ever since. And I guess diversified into all sorts of genres of music and stuff for film and documentaries and ads and all kinds of things.
Nice. Cool. And what are some of the projects of note you've worked on the last couple of years or recently, ones that stand out as being fun that maybe we can talk about at some stage? We'll drop in.
There's been heaps of stuff. I've got a project with a friend of mine in Japan, which is exclusively only on physical platforms, so vinyl, cassette, and CDs. It's a dance like electronic project. Really excited about that. Got a cut with SZA last year, which was pretty cool on her album. Did Stan Walker's last album, which was heaps of fun because the guy's a beast. Obviously all the Drax stuff to most of the Drax debut album. And there's been heaps of stuff, man. There's way too many artists and exciting things. Dallas from Freddy's, love working on his EP and all sorts of stuff.
Cool. So it's nice, broad focus. So soft focus, Joe. Your camera's looking great like that. It suits your music stuff, some of the music stuff you do.
Does
as
it?
well.
Okay, cool.
And some of the feels, smooth, a little bit of, zhuzh and all that. Tell us about you for the audience who might not know who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe. I'm from Auckland, and how did I get into this? Man, probably like most people who decide they want to do music as a career, there's like a little lightning bolt moment when you're like 13 or 14. I definitely had that picking up guitar, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I just played in bands all the way through my teens and my 20s. I eventually made my own project called Ezra Vine, which ended up doing quite well. I got signed in the UK, went to the UK, toured a bunch, played a bunch of shows, and more importantly for the pop stuff is I got to do a bunch of sessions with some really great heavy hitters over in London. And I learned heaps in those sessions in terms of seeing that production and songwriting was a career path that I hadn't really previously thought of. I always thought I was going to be an artist. So basically, as soon as I done that and I found myself back in New Zealand, I was like, man, I am going straight into production and songwriting. And have been doing that ever since, probably like the last 10 years or so. And just a couple of recent acts. I mean, I've worked a lot with Daily J, Cassie Henderson, done a lot of the recent LA Women stuff, Georgia Lines, etc., etc. And yeah, I find it an extremely challenging puzzle that I'm always trying to learn and grow and challenge myself in, and have very high expectations of myself.
Cool. Okay, so Aubrie, do you want Aubrie or Orbs, or you don't care?
Either or is
Okay,
fine.
just so
Totally
everyone
all
knows.
good.
Okay, so tell us about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Aubrie. I feel very honored and a bit like I have imposter syndrome right now because these guys, they're legends. But I started off doing music, just learning piano as lots of musicians do. And from there, I kind of just wanted to write my own stuff. I love listening to music, obviously. And I was fortunate enough to have mentors growing up. So, Mbassa and Josh Fountain, they kind of were there when I was in high school. They showed me behind the curtain of what a producer does. And I was like, dang, people can do that as a job. That seems really fun. I didn't know that it was an avenue that I could take. And so I was like, that's the way for me. So after high school, went to university. I did a classical theory degree and did a whole bunch of music production papers in there. But it was during COVID, so didn't get much done. But then worked at Big Fan for a couple of years. I was studio manager there, and there was so many cool opportunities, meeting everyone coming through. Got to engineer a lot of sessions, which I think has given me a great foundation for production and songwriting. And yeah, I've just been doing production for about 4 years now, and been doing a whole bunch of international trips as well. And so yeah, that's me.
Nice, cool. So I suppose maybe as we sort of start to dive into it for the general people watching it, do you guys want to talk about what you think pop music is, what it covers? You know, obviously it's a really broad thing, but you've all got your sort of semi-specializations in certain aspects of it. You all do different things, which is really useful. You know, pop is so broad and it brings in so many aspects of so many styles, which is one of its greatest strengths, and also makes it really hard a lot of the time. And the production levels are really high. So who wants to go first, just talking about general thoughts on pop?
I feel like we could spend the whole 2 hours or whatever
I'll
it is just trying to define pop. Like,
yeah.
Talking with you guys is real fun. So I thought maybe, I don't know, is there any value in trying to define what pop isn't? Can we define pop by exclusion? Like, is it okay, it's not for this or not for that, or is it's not, I want to say, like, well, I mean, classical is generally not pop, right?
It used to be.
But then we've got Rosalia, but and then Rosalia's records just like brought it right back. So I mean, she's definitely more on the operatic side, but let's say, that's broadly termed classical music.
Yeah, like if we're talking about like whole history's sake, like genres dip in and out of becoming popular. Like you say, classical was the big thing back in the day, and I think it's having a resurgence. So yeah, it's hard to define.
Cool.
It's a dangerous question. I almost would.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to put myself out there to define what isn't is pop. All we can agree on, I'm sure all of us can agree on, is pop music is what's popular and what kind of resonates with a wide audience.
Cool. Yeah, and I think Aubrie brought up a good point where, because things come in and out, as pop producers, you've got to be really up with the play on these new styles, and as things come through, or just working out how to, incorporate them into what you're doing. A lot of styles that are more locked in on what they do, say indie guitar stuff, you know, is more to find, you know, the palette, whereas you're continually, you know, getting new stuff coming in. So
you've almost got to approach it as a musicologist in a way.
Mm.
I think, you know, studying and understanding countercultures and artistic movements as deep as you can with the time that you have on a wide range of genres, and then try and incorporate those with a level of respect to its core, and then bring it in, you know, elements of those things into cross-pollination of music.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're working with artists that, you know, a lot of time will have an ideal expectation of, you know, their track, you know, doing really well, getting a lot of radio play or, you know, streaming play, you know, being in the top 20 type thing. Is that realistic for, you know, as a general statement for a lot of pop artists? They hope to be, you know, popular, to get a lot more plays than, say, a drum and bass artist would, or, you know, an underground hip hop artist would. So it's got a different approach, and also the style of teams you work with. What do you reckon?
Probably generally agree with that. It's like I don't really try to have that into like the mental equation when you're writing a track, though, because as soon as you go, well, this has to be massive, I'm just like, good luck finishing that song, because you're never going to finish it, because you're just gonna have if the expectations are too high on a piece of work, like we're at its infancy, it's never really gonna grow past that. So while that's a concern, I think a lot of pop artists, especially the ones who are doing really well, are really you know, honest and authentic. And I know those terms get thrown around a lot, but honesty and authenticity are what actually resonates on a wide spectrum. I mean, across like a wide, oh my gosh, where are my words? Audience. So like honesty and authenticity tend to resonate with people. Yeah. So if that's getting squashed by pure ambition, and ambition is like, that will come across in the music. People are just going to hear ambition, and people don't really resonate with someone trying to say, hey, I should be massive. Like usually that's not what flies.
Cool. That's good. Yeah, to bring that, because Devin and I talked about that before the meeting on this type of things. It's good to see, a similarity of thoughts on that. Yeah. So yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's on point. It's very on point, Joe. Wholeheartedly agree with that.
Cool.
I think that as soon as you start putting expectations or creative demands, below, commercial expectations, it's always, well, from my experience, it's always been, the outcomes have been duds. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I'm sure you will have written tracks to a brief or something like that. Like a film, someone, or a TV, someone will bring you a track. I mean, a brief, and you got to write something to it, and they go, by the way, we want it to be a smash. And you're like, okay, cool, thanks, great. Like, it's just like, that's my whole day down the trash, because that's now in my head, and I'm gonna, like, I have to then effectively kind of ignore a part of the brief for that to even work, personally.
That's
so yeah, I don't know what you find, Aubrie.
It's funny because it's like that question kind of denotes they're saying that you can either make a smash or not make a smash, and we can choose which one.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I don't want to make a smash today.
Or like, I've had like notes being where they're like, hey, we love what you've done. Can you just make it more catchy? Like, is there a better chorus? And you're just like,
how about this one, Joe? Can you just make it bigger?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like, what do you want bigger? Do you want more bass? Do you want more kick drum? Do you want a louder vocal? What do you want?
Yeah.
Cool. And you're finding, so that stuff's more coming generally from like managers or labels side of things rather than the artists. Do you think that's more common?
Yeah, I think so. I think because most of the time the artists that I choose to work with are people who want to make art.
Great. Cool. Yeah. So then how do you navigate those things as a pop producer, where you've got an expectation from a team, but you're working with the artist just to do what you do and bring out what naturally comes from them, which, is, you know, in your skill set.
There's like the snarky answer, and then there's like the balanced, nuanced answer. And the
Give us the
snarky one is
snarky
just
answer,
like,
Joe. Come on.
it's just like, you just ignore it, and you, like, managers and labels will always want the biggest thing that they possibly can, but it's usually based off what they've heard before. So therefore, you're not going to get anything new, and you're not, like, they're trying to guess the outcome of something without having given the process itself a chance. And so the nuanced response to that, because those pressures always exist, is usually trying to support the artist in whatever way you can, to help them create their art. And that supporting them looks like helping them to ignore or to, like, respond to those pressures. Because if you think, like, as a producer, that you feel that pressure, the artist feels it 100 times more. I can guarantee they feel 100 times more, because they're the person who puts their face and name to it, and then has to go and tour it, and has to go and do all the PR, and has all the, like, you know, if there's label funds attached, there's a massive PR spend that they do on especially on the biggest, like, it gets exponentially larger up, you know, how far up the level of artist, the scale they go. And so if they're thinking about that during the session, it's, yeah, like I said, it's just, there's no chance.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Aubrie?
I agree with Joe a lot on that whole point, because it's like, if the artist isn't all for the song, then what are we doing? You know, there's no point being in the room making a song that they don't like. And so I guess, like, when management and labels come to me with their notes, they like to say, they're like, the artist says that they want this to change. And then I'm like, okay. Go to the artist and I'm like, what do you think of this song? They're like, it's great. And then I kind of just try and double down on what the artist wants for the managers. Kind of acting like a mediator between the two, which is an interesting role to be in. But also like an advocate for the artist. And so, because, like, if they like what they like, they like it. But sometimes you do find a happy middle ground of changing like a couple of elements, and then the management's happy. So it all depends. It's all very nuanced, but yeah.
Cool. Got any other little last thoughts on that, Devin?
No, I agree with all of that. I think I'd advocate always for the artist first, but I do think there is a certain value in a good manager, or a good A&R person, especially if they're not, like, musical leaning themselves. They hear it, like 99% of the population will hear that song, and I think that's got a value to it. But yeah, obviously the advocating for the artist, that's got to be at the top, because without the artist there's no artistry. So it's just, yeah, I think kind of like finding that balance where you kind of almost filter out the worthy feedback as a producer and go, nah, that's a load of shit, or actually I might try that, it's a really good idea. And yeah, that's all I'd add to that, really.
Cool. And I'll just clarify as well. Like, valuable feedback can come from anywhere. And so when I'm saying, like, it's the, you know, like, to protect your artist against the labels and the managers, that's usually against what we were saying before, which is the make it as big as possible. Yeah. Like, give us a hit thing, because that's just not helpful.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to filter that shit out, eh?
Totally. But when they have specific stuff, just kind of like, hey, I'm not sure the low end is quite right for this track. Like, if they're a trusted source, and you probably need to qualify that, but then, you know, like, that would totally give me pause to be like, have I done this right for what? Like, I need to try and understand where they're trying to go, and maybe this will, like, that kind of feedback will help.
Fit for purpose, eh?
Totally.
Cool. And if we link this in, like, Devin, we were talking as well about managing artist expectations about virality. You know, just helping, you know, steer them through aspects. Do you want to talk a bit to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as we can probably all agree, the industry is dynamically changing every, you know, second we breathe air. And I think that in my 30 plus years in the industry, it's changed the most in the last kind of like 5 to 10 years. And I think we've kind of like, we've been up the mountain and seen the peaks of viral internet songs, and we've come back down, and it's harder with the amount of music that's coming out to have anything viral anymore. So I think it's, a realistic expectation is focusing as much as you can on your artistry and connecting with the community and playing that live and growing an audience kind of almost in an old school way. I feel like it's almost come full circle now that with AI and with everything being digitalized, that human connectivity is going to come back to the core of growing an audience. So I think, we have to set realistic expectations, because not only, Joe made a good point before, which, I've been involved with the Drac stuff and other songs, is like the amount of money that actually gets spent you need to grow a pop song is crazy. It's absurd. Even for well-established artists, the amount of money that would get spent on marketing and PR around a song, radio tours, promotion. And we just don't have those kind of budgets in Australasia. That's so minimal for a pop artist to get any kind of proper, overseas budget. So I think it's just having realistic, expectations. Even if you're in the pop genre or your music sounds pop, you got to grow it at a ground level up. I think that's the way forward at the moment anyway.
Nice. Anyone else got any thoughts?
I don't have a crystal ball or anything, so I'm going to put the caveat there that I also don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. This is just my opinion, guys.
Your opinion's worth a lot to me, Devin.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for being nice.
No, dude, it's like, yeah, you're a legend. Yeah, expectations. We're in like a tiny country at the opposite end of the world. It's very hard, purely even because of the tyranny of geography, let's call it that, for someone to just go massive from here. We've seen it with Lord. If that's the expectation, someone needs to be re-educated at a fundamental level. All that stuff makes me just think you need to make art and be in it for the right reasons, because art should be first. If you're not to make a lot of money, just go to LA. Go to LA, give it your absolute best shot there, and do that, because that's totally valid reason to go and do it. But your chances of that happening from here are just so small. So you got to find a reason to love it. You got to find a reason to, so like it's really hard. It's making music and doing it over and over again. Like the effort that we put in is really challenging, and it requires a lot of you. So money can't be the only reason, or virality can't be the only reason that you do this. So yeah, you got to have good reasons, and the need for that is reinforced by being here.
Nice. Oops.
I agree with all these points, but I also do feel like there is an aspect that New Zealanders have, like innately, we're just very different from lots of different parts of the world. Like, as you guys know, going over to different countries to make music, it's actually quite interesting how our perspective as being a tiny country on the like lower side of the earth, it can bring a freshness to a session. So it's like you do have to love what you do, and obviously the passion needs to be there, but I feel like there is an element of newness that you can bring, because of our culture and because of where we're from. And so yeah, it is true, like if you stay in New Zealand, you're probably just going to stay in New Zealand forever, because it's, like you say, it's super hard to get out of that bubble. But there is, I feel like, venturing out, it's kind of a cool experience to see the differences there. So yeah, I think but expectations need to be bridled sometimes.
Cool. Sweet. Should we
I think it should be almost mandatory for anyone that wants to be based in New Zealand that you travel still, because like you said, there's so much we can learn. I learned so much when I'm overseas, but also like you also appreciate maybe what makes us unique, Aubrie, and I think that's a good point. What I've learned overseas, being in sessions, is like, a producer stays on the computer, like a producer drives the session, but I want to play instruments. I want to be like, I'm going to be in conducting a band. I want to be like doing this almost old school way of like, I'll jump on bass if we don't have a bass player. And I think that a lot of us Kiwi people can do that, and that's quite unique. People overseas are like, whoa, you can engineer, you can work in EPC, you're in Logic, you're gonna mix something. What?
Yeah, like our can-do attitude of just DIY, do it yourself, has kind of meant that a lot of the pop producers and people in the pop world, we're just doing everything all at once. Like you say, everyone else on the other side of the world, they're like, I'm just vocals, or like, I'm just top lining, just doing one or two things, because they have the facilities and the avenue to like get big in that space. Whereas for New Zealanders, we're kind of just doing everything all at once. So I think there is an element of like distinction there.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a unique cultural accent that comes from the Pacific that, just growing up here brings that or imparts that. So I said it's Aotearoa has always done really well in the creative side of things as well. We used to always have the highest registration of patents historically. So yeah, we are by definition a highly creative country. So it does, look at things differently. So I do think that's a useful thing. And as going into pop, you're taking a whole broad range of skills, because everyone does have to be so broad over here. So as you said, Devin, you can do all those things, and that really brings a value for going overseas and potentially creating something new. So
yeah, I mean, it also like suits my ADHD brain just to have a million things that I could do, which for a lot of people that don't maybe do music or produce as Joe and Aubrie and me do, they might think that's crazy, but that's kind of almost like, I think, what gets us out of bed every day is like, oh, what can I get better at today? Oh, fuck, I'm going to learn some mixing shit, or I'm going to get better at my bass playing, or, I want to get better at figuring out how to use this crazy new synth I've got, like whatever.
Cool. So with that, should we start jumping on to, diving into tracks? Done a bit of the psychology and big picture stuff. How you actually start off doing songs with artists. Joe, do you want to start with that, and then we'll go on to Aubrie?
Yeah, man, it can happen. I mean, everyone's going to say this. It can happen any way. It can be beat first, melody first, idea first, lyric first, whatever it is. I find that I tend to spend a lot longer on the melody and lyric before, well, at least I try to, before opening the DAW. And it just tends to slow down the initial spark a little bit. And I think that's came because I started writing folk music when I was younger. I was like really coming from quite acoustic driven stuff. And then that sort of influenced the way that I make pop. But like, once we've written a good melody and a lyric and a first draft, we'll tend to then it'll go into the DAW, and then we'll just once we've got a draft, we'll basically start rewriting at that point. And then I keep rewriting until it's really solid, and that there's kind of no bits where your attention as a listener is gonna dip. And sometimes we overwrite, and that's totally fine. We just wind it back to the previous draft, or find the last draft that was feeling really good. But basically, I find that if the top line is the thing that provides all the energy in pop music, and then we've lost Aubrie.
She might have just had to jump off something.
Oh yeah, all good. The top line is generally the thing that provides the energy, and then second to that is drums. So if I can get the top line feeling amazing before we've done any other production, because like Devin said, I love to play guitar, I love to play piano, I love to program synths, I love to do all that stuff. All that stuff at the end of the day is not writing a great pop song. And I'm just saying pop because pop generally is vocal focused. And the vocal is the most important thing. So let's make sure that the vocal is incredible. And after that, what space is left has to be balanced, and we're not just going to fill every available space. So yeah, it's all those skills, piano, bass, guitar, drums, everything. It's just in service of that vocal and making that vocal and the ride of that vocal from second 0 to 2 minutes 30 or 3 minutes 30, wherever you're ending up lengthwise, making that as much of a journey and as exciting as possible. And yeah, I'm seeing Devin nod a lot, so I want to hear what you got to say.
No, I agree with all of that wholeheartedly for pop music, for sure. No debate there. I mean, I wish I was a little bit more disciplined as you at spending more time at the front end, because you're right. It's so much more inspiring to work on something with a great vocal. It's just like everything falls into place. You feel everything more. And yeah, I couldn't agree more as far as pop music goes, for sure.
Like I will say that it doesn't happen like that every single time, because there's still times when I'll start a bunch of ideas with an artist and we just try a bunch of different vibes to see where the record's going, and experiment with, like I was just doing some like chopped up like Fatboy Slim style stuff and seeing if that brought about anything. And then of course the artist goes, that makes me think of this kind of rhythm, and we try that rhythm, and then all of a sudden the top line is being informed by production. So that, there's comes back to what we said at the beginning. There's no one way. It can happen the way that I traditionally do it, or we can just completely switch it and start writing to beats, or the beats can be made in tandem at the same time. I don't know how many people you usually have in your sessions, Devin. I'm usually just one-on-one with the artist. So that gives like a lot of flexibility and makes it maybe feel a little less like an LA session. Don't know whether that's good or not. Sometimes, I like to change things up, so I'll probably change it up again soon.
No, man, I think that's great. I don't ultimately the main point you said is there's no right or wrong way to do things. It's like, I think the most important thing I'd agree with Joe that you said is that you serve the song. Kind of, I'm paraphrasing because you said you serve the vocal, and that kind of is serving the song when you serve the top line. And ultimately, I think if you do that, you can't go wrong. Whether that's a beat comes first and it inspires a vocal take, and then the beat changes, or there's no rules. It's just serve the song. And if you have a good vocal, man, and a good top line, a good story, you're home. Just let it be your navigator.
Like I don't know if you've done this, but actually with the stem splitter stuff, you can do this these days. Like download your favorite songs and do split the stems out, and then just mute the lead vocal and see how much stuff is in there, or like how little stuff is in there. And you'll be kind of amazed at hearing what the balances are like, especially for mixing. Like things generally just aren't as busy or as loud as you think they are as soon as you mute the vocal. So, and that will show you like just how much the vocal is contributing or is responsible for the energy in the track. I found that amazing. I was listening to like a Licky Lee record from like 2012, found the instrumentals, played the instrumentals, and I was just like, this just sounds, it was such an organic sounding record, but the instrumental just sounded like it was bang on the grid. And what was actually moving around was her vocal performance. And that was the thing that was giving it push and pull. And she had heaps of verb on it, like big, luscious plates kind of thing. And it just sounded otherworldly and completely beautiful. But without the vocal, I was like, yeah, it's like actually just two guitars and a synthesizer. And that's what.
Totally agree. Yeah, reverse engineer stuff, pull it apart, and I'd like to maybe add on to that, Joe, is that I found from my experience that the pop music, I guess pop songs that have been called pop now that I've done is like they've been deceptively simple. They've felt simple, but like might feel like there's only a couple vocals, but there's 48 stems of vocals. It's just deceptive simplicity. Flash, and so I'm sure there's been moments where you've probably pulled that up as well.
Oh, bro, yeah.
Deceptive simplicity. I bet you've done it, Joe. I guarantee it. I reckon you've done it. Probably multiple times because you're crafty.
That's too kind. Deceptive. I'm gonna look out for it. I'm gonna keep that in mind because I think I'm always trying to get away with as little as possible. So making something deceptively simple. You know what? That makes me think of like the Strokes. But I'd say it's like people might think it's simple, but there's a complexity. There's a little element of complexity in there that keeps it from being just a loop. And I think maybe that's kind of what I'm looking for. So you like deceptive, it's deceptively simple, but then when you pull back the curtains, you're like, but there is one thing there.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the same thing, or maybe two sides of the same coin.
No, we are absolutely, because the simplicity could be anything. It could be a deceptive simplicity within the rhythm section, that's still only a guitar, a bass, and a drummer, But
you listen to like Californication or something like that, and you go like, all right, 4 chords, like Chili Peppers. That record was absolutely huge all around the world, and yes, that's another great Chili Peppers song. But I've just recently been listening to them again and just going, man, this was like the 4 chords that I first like learned guitar on. But the emotion contained within it is immense. Within 4 chords, and each different section recombines them in a different way. And then you listen to Chad Smith's drumming, and you go like, dude, that guy's just playing kind of the same beat for the whole song, but he is like, there's some real intricacy there, but he never lets that take over from the emotion of the song. So yeah, there's this, dude. We can talk about this the whole time. Let's go.
Do you want to? So yeah, welcome back, Orbs.
We've got Aubrie back.
Yay!
Yeah. Aubrie, bring us back on track.
Yeah. So basically, what we're talking about is, was it how you start off on songs? What's your approach to that side of things?
Oh wait, were you answering that question the entire time?
Yeah,
we digress massively. So yeah, don't listen to me and Joe.
No, I love that. Yeah, it varies every single time. It's just it's very artist and vibe dependent on the day. Honestly, some days I could just be talking to an artist for hours before we even think about touching an instrument or pressing record on the DAW. So it depends. But I guess for me, I resonate better with like kind of the opposite of what you said, Joe, because I always started off making instrumentals. Singing and stuff and lyrics were very secondary to me. It's kind of it's in tandem now, but it still kind of shows up in my songwriting where I can start off with more of the instrumental behind the song, and then the melodies and stuff come afterwards. That's just kind of how I like to go.
Nice. And Devin, you were saying the other day, the first session with an artist, that you do is a bit like speed dating. Getting the chemistry. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Aubrie just touched on it there. Like, often the first session can just be like you're chatting for ages and getting to know someone, because it's like, I like to associate everything to basketball because like I'm a basketball nerd. I used to play basketball. It's about like having chemistry where it's ESP, like you want your writing and your performances just to be an ESP situation where you're not really thinking about like that you're in a studio, that you're recording anything. You're just kind of letting everything fall out of you. And I think you can do that once you get to know someone. There's a bit of level of trust there. You can kind of let yourself go a bit as an artist. They feel safe to do that. And you as a producer can only do that if you really like allow yourself to be vulnerable and get to know people.
Nice. Anyone else got any other little bits on that? Otherwise, we'll go on to like production, instrumentation, and working, the actual.
And you're a real drill sergeant, Chris.
I've got a schedule we've got to keep to. Otherwise, yeah.
Get down and give me 20, boy.
It's because
we'll get too many questions.
we digress. Yeah.
That is true. I will take full ownership of my digressions.
Cool. Do you want to jump onto production stuff now, everyone? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to start off on doing that? Things like program versus organic balance and what they do, working with doors. Yeah, just the general approach on that side of things. Micro editing, as in like, that attention to detail that you get into on tracks, especially for pop stuff. How honed you often have to get it for many things. And as one of you said, the deceptive simplicity of it all, which Devin and Joe had a little chat on a little bit before, but you might want to expand on that. But basically, once you're getting into the production side of things and getting into the recording and the DAW side. Who wants
Aubrie, do you want to go first?
Oh, me? Oh yeah, great. I think production wise, it's like it's super easy to fall into a trap of doing the same thing every time. And so especially with pop, because it's like, if you guys talked about the deceptive simplicity of it, it's like sometimes you can get caught in that trap of being like, this is what makes it a pop track. Therefore, if I include it, then it's like fine. But I've noticed that like lots of my songs are becoming homogenized these days, and it's easy to fall into that trap. And I think the if we're thinking about the difference between in the box and out of the box, like organic integration of instruments and stuff, I'm totally 100% on board for including as many real life elements as possible. Especially about what Devin was saying about how the climate of music is changing, where people are loving that authenticity a lot more than the AI stuff that's coming out or everything that's super hyper pop. And so I think, yeah, I'm trying to incorporate more of that organic elements into my songs as I go.
Nice. Who else has got a thought?
Yeah, I programmed versus organic. Like I don't know if that's much of an argument anymore as much as it used to be like 10 years ago. When like when Lord blew up, it was like, man, let's get some samples and a synth. And that was kind of like the dominating sound of pop. It was not very like quote unquote organic. And we just had like the folk thing was just before that. And everyone was like, well, that was organic and this is not. And I don't think those lines are really like, I'm trying not to think of it about it that way anymore. Like I don't feel like that's too relevant. Like I feel like what's relevant for me personally is more like the way something makes you feel. And like I have manipulated like vocal performances and like I think what Fred okay this is okay so manipulating vocal performances, like chucking them through a delay and like really crafting every moment of that so that it generates this kind of like rising, like not a riser but just like rising intensity and chopping it up and like gating it and all sorts of crazy stuff, doing a transgate thing so that then it explodes into a chorus. Well, that's like not using an acoustic guitar, but to me that's organic because that's your it's not just a loop. You're not creating just a loop. You're making something, a performance move, like in a way that that like yields a emotive response. So I think like Fred again does this amazingly. I listen to his music and I go, that feels really organic to me. And it's programmed. So like I just try to do what it like I kind of think like, man, every not every parameter, that's crazy, but you should automate stuff like as much as you can to try and find ways of making that emotion come through more, because you can program a kit and then the more you automate stuff, or like the more you just like, actually let's distort this little part of it for this little microsecond and make something pop out of the speakers at you, or like whatever it is, those are ways of making it feel more organic and more human by extension. That's the stuff that AI cannot currently do very, very well. AI is great at loops. AI is great at like the more sanitized and perfect versions of things, because it's taking like the middle of the bell curve. But we can like in our pop productions, you can go like way out to the extremes and include little bits of this and little bits of that. So I don't know. I feel like Devin's an absolute master at that kind of stuff. So when I talk about it, he's light years ahead. So
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I don't disagree with either of you. I think you're both like there's correct things, like, or not right or wrong, but there's like points made that are valuable to each of you, and like I've applied both of those mechanisms for myself. I always just kind of go with what's best for this artist, what's best for the song. And coming back to the pop thing, which we digressed on, Joe, is like the vocal thing's so important because that's where the human aspects of pop music is in the vocal, whatever genre, like, because dance music can be pop music, you know, folk music can be pop music, anything, country can be pop music. And ultimately the one thing that they all have in common is that they've all got an artist singing and connecting with people. And so I think as long as like there's a human aspect to that, man, automate your life away. I fucking automate so much stuff in some of my like more electronic stuff and more, you know, dance space things. The amount of automation almost makes me dizzy sometimes. I'm just like, how many colored things can I have on one logic line, you know? And but then there might be like a more like folk artist that I'm working with where it's just all organic instruments. I might have loosely quantized things to be on the one and the three, or the two and the four snares are on, you know, whatever, and everything else is kind of loose. And I've either played it or got someone that's way better than me to play it. And so I agree with both of you, but I do think that the vocal performance is ultimately what we have to make sure that we're keeping as our hero, and that's the human thing.
Cool. And when you're talking about bringing in other people, I mean, pop's one style that has hyper collaboration a lot of the time. You know, you see on a lot of pop productions, you know, there might be 8 or more people involved in it. You know, and sometimes, you know, especially in a place like New Zealand, fewer people due to budgets and things like that. But what's your experience or thoughts on that, you know, the highly collaborative nature of pop production and people bringing in all their skills? And how do you work with that?
Who are you asking?
Anyone, jump in, whoever feels like it.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, sweet as.
Sorry. Okay. Oh, Joe, what are your thoughts on the hyper collaboration then of pop?
I generally try to keep the circle smaller, is where I tend to like sit. And that's coming from being a singer-songwriter. And that's just like purely I think I find it really hard to trust people. Like, you know, I'm not very like free with my ideas. Be like, hey, you know, like I'll throw stuff out there if I'm in a session with like two other people and we're working to like, you know, there's a vibe and you're trying to create something and you're at a songwriting camp or whatever. But usually with my artist, it's just me and the artist, and we're just doing whatever we can to make that as good as possible. And yeah, I mean, some people would certainly go for a larger team, and that's totally fine. That's just not really how my brain is wired.
Yeah, but do you have that experience, like, or say, well, any of you, when you go overseas, you know, if we've say been to LA or various other countries, you know, do you work in production teams, or you know, on songwriting camps and things like that?
I mean, yeah, I've done quite a few songwriting camps, but I feel like um, it's quite a different experience doing writing weeks with people, especially because it's like you've never met probably majority of the people, and so it's all very uh, what is it, like a happy stance type of situation being in those scenarios. And quite often the songs, they're okay. They don't end up being amazing. Sometimes they're really, really good and you just feel magic with all those people, but sometimes it doesn't work so well. But I'm kind of similar to Joe. Like, growing up singer-songwriter, it is very hard to open up and give creative control when you are working with an artist that, depending on the genre, it can vary. Like, I feel like in dance music, it's a lot easier to just like fly things over to people and be like, hey, what do you think of this beat? What do you think of that? And they're really great at doing that, people who are in that world. But I think for me, in the more like indie singer-songwriter space, it's very personal to the artist. And quite often, yeah, when I'm in those rooms, even internationally, it's just me and one other person. So yeah, it's an interesting experience.
Cool. You got any thoughts on that, Devin, or how do you work when you're working with a lot of people in the studio, or other writers and things?
I was going to bring in another basketball analogy in, but I'll widen my analogy berth here today. And it's kind of like, I like to think of, for me anyway, like producing is like being in a big kitchen and you've got like your sous chefs and your dessert chefs and I guess if you're the head chef, you're kind of like, coordinating the end result. And I guess, unfortunately, it's a blessing and a curse having studied jazz. It's like it almost puts you into a musical nut house. But the blessing and curse side of it is that I often can hear a certain musician that could do the exact thing I want that I've done okay, can do it way better, or there's another producer that can put a certain swing into a beat that I just I'm not hearing. And so I actually I've grown up in bands. I've grown up in, jamming with lots of people as a musician. And I love working with session players, and I love big sessions. I prefer, when it comes to writing, being in a small room like these guys, but I think once it gets out of the room, if it suits the vibe, I'm all for bringing other people in.
Nice. Cool. Should we
Just
jump?
personal taste. I guess that's kind of reflects everyone's personalities,
Cool.
Totally.
Sweet. Hey, yeah, because we've got sort of half an hour left. So should we jump on to, as we brought up, the core of pop, vocal production? Psychology of it, how you work with artists to get those, ideal performances, and just your general approaches to it. Aubrie, do you want to talk about how you approach vocal production for pop?
Yeah, sure. I reckon, yeah, vocal production is the hallmark of a good pop song. Like it really does make or break a song, and it can also make or break the creation of a song. I feel like in the room when you're writing it, the artist, it's not necessarily an ego thing, but it definitely is a confidence thing, that if they feel confident when they're singing what they're singing, it's like they're more likely to hit certain notes that they might not feel confident otherwise, or they just feel like they're in a safe space that they sound really good in, and they're gonna do things that they wouldn't usually do. And me, I've been in a couple production sessions as an artist with producers, so it's like I get to see the other side of the coin. And yeah, there's been times where like you can't hear yourself in the headphones, and it just takes away from the whole experience, and then you think you're a failure, and then you're like, well, that wasn't great. But then there's other times where you're like, dang, I sound like a god, like, and then the song comes out and you're like, yep, that was great. So I think there's a very strong connection between making the artist feel good in the room and in the moment, and the mode in which you do that through like the plugins that you use. So I chuck on I have like a good preamp, a good compressor going in to make sure that the vocal's nice and loud, nice and fat. Obviously dependent on genre, and then like reverb, auto tune, anything that makes the artist like their vocal more. Obviously not for all artists. Some artists hate that stuff. Totally okay. But yeah, that's just kind of my experience working with a whole bunch of different artists.
Cool. Who's next? Who wants to jump in?
I'm going to nominate Joe, because if
go.
anyone, Joe's Georgia Line's vocal production's insane, so people should just listen
Thanks,
to that.
dude.
Yeah.
Oh
For
man,
pop music, it's pretty slick.
that was a cool one. Yeah, I mean, what was the mic? It was probably a U47 into a 1073 into a CL1B, and like for me, I just was like, man, if I'm going to invest in anything, I'm going to invest in a good vocal chain. Because that's like everything else I can pay to go to a studio. I was just like, I just want to have something that helps my artists, be represented as well as they possibly can. And for some people, it's it's the manly, or it doesn't really matter what your kind of your thing is. But those are the tools that work for me. And Georgia's an amazing vocalist. She has a great like sheen to her vocal. But yeah, we spend a lot of time, like a lot of time, and my artists generally get really sick of me going like, sing it again, sing it again. And then after that, there's like a raft of editing. And then after that, I'll edit it again. And sometimes I'll just feel like I don't really do a lot of auto tune. I do a lot of Melodyne. But then with that comes like some weird formant shifting. So then I'll have like an untouched performance where I can do a whole Melodyne pass on a whole song, and then I'll listen to each phrase and just like comp between the tuned and the untuned and just see which one's actually giving me more emotion at the end of the day. Because sometimes you can ruin it by over editing. So yeah, but just making sure that the artist is comfortable, they can hear themselves, they have to sound like a god. If they're not sounding like a god, then we're not ready to record. If they're lacking confidence, I'll like stand up with them, we'll sing together, we'll have some fun, we'll put some music on, like anything to just make it feel like an enjoyable thing. Like they're in there to do what they are dreaming of doing for like the rest of their lives, a lot of these people. So like if that's an unenjoyable experience for them, like we're not going to get a good song, but we really want to enjoy this process. Like it's like we're all working hard, so let's have fun while we do it. And like the great thing is when they're having fun, you can hear it. And as well as that, just make sure they're on access to the microphone. But if they're not, I can fix that. But I prefer it if they are on access, so I can get that top end like coming through beautifully. Yeah, there's so much to it. We could do a couple hours on this easy.
Yeah, with the on access thing, like we've got the Triad Orbit little phone holder, and it's just a nice way to keep them on that, because people holding their phones at various angles, and as you said, going off axis for certain mics can really be a problem. So having something attached to the mic stand, we find useful. Any of you guys use that? Similar type thing?
Yep,
cool. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Let's tag Devin in now.
Oh man, I can't really add anything. These guys have summed it up perfectly. Like, just create a safe space where they can be the best of themselves, feel really, really comfortable to close their eyes and just let themselves sound like a god.
Yep.
And have a bit of an ego. It's like, it's because ultimately that's what being an artist is. It's like having the right amount of ego where you're not a dick, but you're fucking amazing.
Yeah, cool.
So I can't really anything. I only thing I'd say is like, I would highly recommend to any producers out there. I'm the same. I invested in a really expensive vocal chain, which I'm really happy I did. It was a lot of money, which Vintage King in LA took off me, which I swore I was only going to buy one rack thing when I went in there, and I came out with 3.
Oh.
I was really broke after that for a while, but highly never regretted any of the dollars spent on my vocal chain, and I've got 2 really nice mics that I like. And actually, Chris, I just bought that Telefunken Tube to put on my Manly, because I'll start using that again.
Yeah, it's good.
Just wholeheartedly agree with that. Just a great vocal chain, even if that's all you have as far as your analog gear. Everything else can be in the box. You can go to other studios. Aubrie said it well. She's got the interface, like the preamp. That's just such important pieces of kit. I can't stress enough as an engineer or producer to have.
Cool. And with vocals, as you said, Devin, for you, it's really important to really layer, and often people don't put enough layers or enough depth on the vocals.
For pop music, I mean, genre specific. But for pop music, I've generally gone, vocalists get sick of me as well. It's like, I need, 4 unisons each side. So you're going to do whole passes until I'm happy. And I'm a bit, they probably get sick of me too.
That's a lot, man. 4 each side. So like 8, so 9 vocals total.
Yeah, because it's like I
Wow.
really like the different layers of panning and EQing you can do with each of those unisons, and
Wow.
formatting as well. Like I found if you format
Yeah.
a couple of the unisons, and also it's just really good like to have those extra takes. Like you kind of
Oh,
like almost
definitely.
like, I
Definitely.
don't know about you two, but I've always found when you're telling a vocalist, don't worry, we're just doing a unison, they relax and they just sing,
Yeah.
and it's like
And
having
they
another
sing
whole
better.
amazing comp. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like I
Totally.
found
And they do the whole thing in one go as well.
exactly, and it's
And
quite
you're
often
like,
I've gone to
you
that. I'm like, oh man, actually that chorus is
yeah,
way really good.
totally.
So I don't know, man. It's just how I've done. I feel like I'm a bit of like a slave, pushing them
That's
hard. But
that's funny because I'm trying to get away with as little extra vocals as possible. So like, during the verses, I'd love, or even choruses, man, if I can, I'll get away with one vocal, doing like the Amy Winehouse thing.
yeah,
But it just comes down to like a great vocal sound and then a great performance. And so if you have those two things, and then you can add depth like that, because you get a lot of depth and a lot of fatness and width from all those extra vocals. Except I'm just getting them from effects,
yeah.
and I'm getting them from, like vocal spreading, and which is essentially just doing the same thing. It's like doubling, but it's in a different way. But I might do like early reflections kind of thing. So it's simulating a room, a
Yeah.
lot of slaps, a lot of, just whatever I can to make it sound full. But that's crazy. I'm gonna steal
I don't
your
know, man.
eight vocals
I don't
thing.
know if anyone should take that because everyone's like, "Do I have to do another take?" But I found it has served me more than it hasn't, so I just
Yeah,
keep doing it.
awesome,
Cool.
awesome.
So what are your when you actually like get it in through your nice vocal chain, which is established as really important in an ideal world for pop production? Any particular favorite plugins in your chains or go-tos? How do you approach reverb for your pop vocals for various this various style? Obviously, there's a lot of difference, but do you have any general advice for the people listening on vocal reverb and how to get a really nice feel?
Well, I'll probably start with all three of us use Fab Filter. I've probably taken a guess,
Yep.
but Fab Filter is like can't go wrong. And Valhalla, if you want a really affordable reverb, like across the spread of different kind of reverbs they have, man, some of the like I remember the Post Road, what are they called? Park Road Post guys were saying that they had these incredibly expensive Bricasti rack reverbs.
Yeah,
They were using the Valhalla ones over those. So I was just like, well, man, like this is how good software is now, and it's really affordable. So I don't know. I'm assuming we all probably use those plugins.
Correct.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And any particular favorite EQs or delays or particular chains you like to use on vocals?
I mean, this is probably a really good thing to talk about. But like personally, minimalist. I won't add a de-esser unless we need a de-esser. I'll only compress if we need compression. So I'm just trying to get as little plugins on a vocal as possible, because that way I can like it preserves the emotional intensity most of the time. And there is like 10% of the time where you just like want to use a crazy chain and you go for it and it sounds amazing. So like, yeah, most lead vocals probably have like an EQ, a compressor, and I'm trying to keep that down to just one compressor, usually an 1176, and maybe some saturation and maybe another EQ, and then we're done. And like, because I just found that when it was more than that, like I would listen back to those records and be like, damn, like there is still so much sibilance, or there's still like there's everything. Every time you affect a vocal, you have an unintended consequence. Generally, you want to compress it. Well, great. Now all your S's, P's, K's, C's, all this stuff, all this junk has come up. Is that helping you emotionally, or is it not helping you? Okay, if it's not helping, then you either got to go and edit it all, or you go and add another plugin. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm just trying to keep it minimal and preserve like it comes back to getting a better performance. Like if the performance is amazing, you don't really need to do a lot of that stuff. You might just use one parallel for all that,
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Aubrie? How do you approach your vocal chain in the box?
Very similar. Like, I think back in the day, I used to chock-a-block it with a whole bunch of useless junk. And then I listen back and I'm like, holy moly, what was I doing? like I'm giving all these artists lisps over here with the amount of de-essing that I'm doing. But yeah, I think less is more, but then also like what these guys were saying, just having the best basics that you can have on offer. So like, yeah, the Fab Filter, Pro Q, maybe like LA2A, or like just invest in really good, well-known plugins that do the basics stuff. But then I think like when you venture off into effects and things, that's when you can have a lot of fun. I love sound toys, anything from there. Baby Audio has some really cool effects in there as well, like echo and delay. Yeah, so I kind of just like to keep it simple on the main chain, but then go crazy with the effect sends and things.
What do you do on the effect sends, for example? Got any examples?
I do quarter note echo with Sound Toys Echo Boy Jr. I do Valhalla for the verb, but I've got I use the Don Glenn amazing vocal preset, I think. And then obviously a lot of automation so I don't usually put effects on the actual vocal. I kind of just bust it out so that it's not affecting the sound. But yeah, and then I have like a slap delay, I like the micro shift. Gives it a little bit of a kind of takes the vocal and kind of just sterilizes it a little bit. But I know that some people don't like that, so yeah, it's kind of just preference.
Oh, I love the micro shift. I've been doing that too. I've been using it like just really low in the mix and putting it just on the high frequency stuff, and it's been so nice.
That's great.
Nice.
It's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a good little check.
Yeah. Do any of you
that one?
Yeah, and do any of you use unmasking or like track spacer, or like United Plugins do fire spacer? Just that so you can have stuff keeping out the way, effectively like side chaining, stuff out of the way of the vocal.
I definitely do sometimes in the more electronic stuff where like the reverbs are like quite dense. So yeah, I'll duck that way. And in the mix for like instruments and stuff, usually not at all up until maybe 5% at the very last, minute to see if it improves, and if it doesn't, then fine.
Cool. What about you, Devin? Do you use any of that sort of stuff? Just ducking of any of those plugin equivalents?
Genre specific, obviously, but yeah, quite a lot. And dance stuff, and more kind of like cleaner pop stuff. Trying to create deceptive space, and definitely like I've found myself doing some pretty weird shit with side chaining. So it's a good tool.
Nice.
I like to use Soothe too to duck from the instrumental.
Cool. Yeah, they're handy tools. As I said, we're giving away one of the United Plugins Fire Spacer. So if they ask a question, we'll go into some questions soon. So fire them through if you've got any. Someone can win a Fire Spacer, so they can try and create some more space in their mix if it's the right sort of
create some more fire in your mix.
Yeah, get everything out the way of the vocal. Fire. Let's have a look. Got a question from G Entertainment. How long is too long to be in post after you've tracked a session for your artists and no timeline is given, or if no timeline is given? It depends?
How long's a piece of rope?
Or do you ask? You just make sure you ask the people, so you don't end up spending a whole load of time when it's either not budgeted for.
I'll tell you a funny trivia thing here. I was reading Bruce Sweden, who was like Quincy Jones' kind of right hand man. He was his engineer for all of the Michael Jackson stuff, heaps of Quincy's records. And he was saying they did 98 mixes of Billie Jean.
Oh.
And guess which mix they used?
First one.
Number 2.
Right. Yeah.
Number 2. So I always kind of have that in the back of my mind with like, how much time does it take to overcook something,
Depends what you mean by post as well. Is post editing or is it the mix?
Well,
Man, sometimes
post everything after the session, right?
Yeah, I guess it's let's say, I mean, it depends how good your chops are as well. Like, it used to take me forever to edit these things, like, especially doing a lot of, like, this is back to the organic versus program thing. But when I was doing, when you're doing organic drums, well, those generally, if they're in a pop context, need to be edited and, chucked either on or close to the grid. If you're doing a bunch of organic instruments, unless people can play real good and you're just going for like a full everyone together in the room vibe, well, all that stuff needs to be edited. So it really comes down to, um, yeah, getting better at tracking as much as you can so that you know when you've got the right take and you know what you need to do to it to get it to sit in, and you get quick at editing. And then all that stuff just comes with experience. It just takes a long time. So I would say spend as long as you like if you want to. It's up to you. And like if you're still good keeping the lights on and keeping everything moving while investing in your craft, that's great. But if you're if the budget's only there for like a couple of days or whatever and the thing needs to be delivered, we'll just get to it and deliver it. And you can experiment later with learning more stuff about how to get that faster. Yeah.
Cool. We got another question from Robots in Love Music. How much do you take into consideration that the tracks you work on and mixes will be heard on a phone for a lot of people? Do you account for that when you're actually doing production or mixing?
Certainly some of the time, for sure. Especially if it's you're aiming it to be a pop song, and let's say you've magically created a great song in a writing session. You're like, man, this could be something. It feels really special. Then you want to know that can be heard across everything that people are listening to music on.
Absolutely agree. Like during mixdown, we'll just make sure that everything's audible. I mean, not everything, because it's pretty
But the
challenging
basics,
to get something through. Yeah, the basics. You want to hear the vocal, you want to hear like the drums, and you want to hear like probably the main instrument that's supporting the vocal. Bass is a tricky one. If we can't hear the bass, I'll definitely go and work on that. Especially if it's like 808s in the tune. If you can't hear them on your phone, it's not probably not going to translate to a laptop either. But yeah, the phone's a great test. Definitely pay attention.
Cool. Next question. Well, how do you approach a session where a song's just not working? And you can just
Rewrite
give a quick
the
answer
song.
on this. Yep. Cool. Good.
Or kill it and start something new.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I'm sure we've all been there, eh?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
No one's immune to that. No one is, no matter what people tell you or put on social media, no one's got 100% strike rate in this business. We've all.
You guys ever stopped?
Everyone's.
Have you ever
That, Aubrie?
have you ever stopped a session like it's just like not working at all? You're like, all right, back it up.
Oh yeah.
You have?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go
Definitely.
for lunch, or let's just
Totally.
leave. Let's go home early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point everybody feeling anxious and like sitting there and sweating. Yeah, and the best thing to
And
do
that's
is
our job as
stop.
producers, right? To
Totally.
do that too.
We got to call it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're nearly there. Do any of you had any particular things you're wanting to talk about? You think it would be good to bring up or recommend to the people listening in, watching in? Putting you on the spot, of course. Recent things that have come up that you've gone, ooh. That's a hard one, eh?
I mean, that's a big question. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think everyone's actually said this, even if it was been a soft kind of response today. But I think like just always learning, just whatever genre you're doing, whether you want to get really good at mixing, or you want to just be a great writer and / producer, or you want to be a session player that does a bit of production. It's just all about constantly learning. Like I've been doing music for 30 years and I still feel like I don't know shit and I just want to get better.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like I'm going to be stuck with that into the
Totally.
grave, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
found
feel exactly the same.
Yeah, we found in our
Thanks, guys. I'm not alone.
and we found in our MPG survey data that the people that do producing as a sort of primary thing generally have a really broad number of skills and things that they really like to learn. So, you know, as one of you brought up earlier about, you know, being really diversified here, but it also, you know, it does give a strength that, that really helps. So, yeah.
I think something I've been thinking about is, it's how do you guys go about comparison within the industry? And Devin, you talked about like learning new things and stuff. How do you keep motivated when it's like you can see other people doing such great things, or like, you know, scrolling on your phone, there's always someone doing something better. How do you guys kind of mitigate that feeling of just being like, oh, maybe I'm not great? Or how do you have those feelings at all?
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, the imposter thing. I've only feel like I finally let go of that recently. I used to have that all the time for everything, whether I was a musician or a producer or a songwriter. Every now and then I still have a moment of it, but I just kind of use everything as like motivation. Okay, I need to get better at this aspect of my skill set, or like I have something that I do differently that I could, you know, bring to that table, but I would need to upskill here, or, you know, I just kind of always use everything as like a motivation to get better. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think everybody, no one's immune to you know, comparison and those things being kind of like that. You don't ask to see like a mate, you know, like in some amazing studio overseas, like in an amazing session or whatever, and you like, but Instagram just serves that to you because it just goes, yo, you're interested in this and that. But I just prefer to like have my head down, and like Devin says, you know, just I'm picking up skills. I'm working on me. Like, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm working on me
Yeah.
because that's that person's path, and maybe there's some things that I can learn from the way they're approaching like their career. Um, but like no one, it can be you. So you be you, and you be the best version of you that you possibly can. And it's usually not following someone else's thing. And it's usually not trying to emulate what they're doing. Like I say, we can pick and choose. Like I said, we can pick and choose like things that we want to incorporate into our process or into our artistry. Um, but like everyone's path is going to be unique and different. So like there is a large portion of you know, once hard work stops, that's when luck starts. So like you just take care of the hard work thing and give yourself as many opportunities to be lucky as possible. And like, you know, the path will unveil itself. That's what I think.
Cool. And yeah, we'll just do
Very sage advice, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, we'll just do probably one more thing after this, but just reminding everyone, if they join up to the MPG, they get a whole load of free stuff like producer mix contracts, session musician contract releases. They can get mix assists, so if you're getting stuck on a mix, you can send it in, and one of the MPG crew will, you know, give you some advice on it. You get access to Serato and Melodics. You can come along to our various meetups that we do. Yeah, there's a whole lot. So go onto the website, just mpgnz.co.nz. But yeah, just I suppose one, and disco now as well, which Devin uses disco. Quite a few people
Awesome.
do. So yeah, you can get a free trial period on disco and some good deals. And there's always more stuff coming on, like free plugins, which we'll give away one shortly. But I suppose going back to the contracts and things like that, what's any of your approaches to, you know, things like royalty splits, producer splits, and things like that? And you know, do you have any advice for people on that, Aubrie? Do you want to talk to any of that?
Yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable about that, honestly, because I got management quite early into my career, so they kind of handle that side for me. But I recently did learn a bit about the differences, I guess, because there's writing splits, there's producer credits, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable about that. So if you guys want to talk about your experiences?
I mean, I've had good and bad experiences from maybe not being as educated as I should have been, for myself. I don't know about you, Aubrie, but yeah, maybe you got management, so you got that covered. But like, yeah, I've learned the hard way several times, but it is really good if you have, future earning possibilities on both sides. That's my advice. If you've been part of the songwriting, even if it's in a small capacity, you should advocate for yourself as a songwriter. And if you've done production or you've done something towards the master, then you should absolutely be seeing some kind of points royalty on the master side. That's my humble opinion. I think as producers, it's all about building up a catalog of work that you're proud of, but also a body of work that can earn you income in perpetuity.
Yeah, the passive income's really important for producers. We're finding that's a significant thing for the most successful MPG members, is that they build up, that passive income. So I definitely recommend, if you are doing stuff that you can get that, it's really useful for your long-term career. So yeah. What about you, Joe? What are your thoughts on all of this side of things?
It's all negotiated before I start work. So, like a songwriting session might occur, and then once they're like, "Yep," I mean, this is generally what happens is like we've done some songwriting sessions, and they're all on spec. Yeah, it's just generally the way it goes. There are some people talking about changing that. There are all sorts of different ways to do it. But previously, what's happened is I've written a song on spec with an artist. We're developing a great relationship. Artist then says, "I want to use the song." Then all the mechanical royalties and the APRA like songwriting splits are put in a contract, and the contract stipulates where you get paid, like where the money goes to, where the credit goes to, like the frequency of getting paid, like your ability to audit them if like they're not paying, all that kind of stuff. And all of that protects me legally and protects them legally. I find that all my clients feel they feel somewhat protected because the wording is not just like heavily in my favor. Label agreements are a different story, however, so just get a good lawyer. That's all I can say. And just all that stuff just needs to be nutted out before you do any work with the label stuff. Sometimes that's not always possible, so that's just a whole different conversation. But yeah, get everything in writing, get everything agreed by both parties, everybody's happy, and everybody knows that we're there to make great art.
Yeah, one thing that might be useful as well, some of the distributors are doing splits at source for payments as well, which can be useful rather than having to have an indie artist or an independent artist do all that reporting. They can often be a bit slack on it, or it can be a bit tricky. So some of the distributors will actually pay directly to people. So yeah, that could be another thing to think about. You got any other thoughts on any of this, Devin?
No, I think it's covered. I mean, yeah, just advocate for yourself as transparently and honestly as you can, and like ultimately, hopefully, you guys can, other producers out there, you get this done and you shelve it and you focus on the art.
Cool.
Totally.
Okay, got a couple of quick last rapid questions. Talking about once you've done the track and then people want to come back and do changes, how do you approach that? Extra charges, or you just wear it, or
what
any
Joe
general
said.
Thoughts?
Basically what Joe said.
Cool.
If you want to do any more work after the writing session, especially if you've done it on spec, then yeah, it's contract or basic terms conversations.
Yeah, it's not like let's write a brand new chorus to this and then we'll think about using it. It's kind of like at that point it's kind of like, okay, well now that's flicks over into what I call development. At this point, we're doing some development. You want to explore something? Here's the day rate.
Yeah. Cool. And last question, throw this to Orbs first. How do you evaluate hooks and songs? Do you have any, you just feel it out, or just get other people to come and listen to it? Just especially when you're double guessing yourself on stuff because you've just been, working all day on it? That's
I
Benji.
Benji, thank you, Benji. Recently we had a talk with Ryan Tedder. He came through and he said that if your song can be a slogan on a t-shirt, then it's great. I feel like that kind of, it's a good mantra for a good hook in a song. It's if it's just replaying in your head constantly, you're probably on the right track. The more annoying, the better, honestly. I guess for pop music, but yeah, that's kind of just my thing. It's like, I feel like I've got a pretty okay internal, like, clock of what is hot at the moment. Maybe, I don't know if that sounds a bit weird, but yeah, generally if I feel like a hook is a hook, it's just vibes based off for me. But there are little bits of like theory that you can think about, like depending on what the verse is like and what the pre is like, the hook might not be as strong, or vice versa, might be overpowering. So I guess it's just like a balance between everything, because you kind of want to keep the listener hooked, and then when the hook comes, it's like, that's why I stayed. But you want to keep them the entire time. So I don't know if that answers the question.
That's cool. Yeah. Joe, how do you approach your hooks? You just go by vibe, or do you have any other little tricks you do when you're getting stuck?
Primarily by vibe, but there's a huge like box of tricks to either troubleshoot or come up with something new when it's not working. And I mean, I'd say that's for all production. So much of it is vibe. It's about how it makes you feel, and songwriting. That's about how it makes you feel. But there's so many times when it's not working. So that's when learning all those tricks is super, super important. Aubrie just touched on what I would broadly term the rate of information. If you've written an amazing hook and yet in the context of the song it's just not working, then you got to go and reassess something. And that's when thinking about the rate of like even in a vocal, just this like the speed of some of the lines, like how it develops and then it goes through into the pre-chorus and then it kind of goes into the chorus and then you might have a hook after that or whatever. Just the way that you are structuring these out, like the issue could be in there. I mean, sorry, that's a whole different conversation, but think about the rate of information. I'm sorry, I'm really not covering that very well.
No, it's very true. Like, also, like, not giving away the starting note of the chorus instantly at the start of the song. Some, like, keeping the verse kind of what is it?
A little more contained.
Not many intervals, not jumping around. The timing, maybe stay away from those triplets, maybe get into triplets in the pre. Yeah, it's all just like subconsciously there. We all know it, we all feel it. But when you actually like learn these rules, it becomes really scientific and kind of mathematic. I guess that's kind of the simplified nature of pop. But yeah, it's kind of like if you know these core things that we all subconsciously feel, then you'll just start making great hooks.
Cool. Devin, any last comments on that?
I mean, the only thing if I'm questioning anything in the studio on a writing session especially, is like, okay, drop all the tools, sit at a piano or a guitar outside, sing the song. Does it feel like a big, hook? Then it usually is, because no matter what genre you're working on, if you can play it with one acoustic instrument and singing it and it sounds like a banger, it probably is. It sounds dumb, but it always like is a good acid test for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I think we're pretty much there. I think Huia is just going to come through and do the giveaway right now. So she's just sending messages and talking to people. Here she comes.
I'm here.
She's here. I'll tag you in. You can say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
There you go.
Dramatic intro as per usual.
I'm going to go back to my source.
Kia ora,
I don't
Huia.
know who wins.
Get the
5
pipe.
people.
Hi,
Where's
Huia.
your chat? Hey, you got the
Yeah.
chat up?
Yeah.
Oh, so many screens.
Put the headphones on now.
Okay, great. Hi, you guys have been so interesting. I learned a lot.